Can you believe it, Ben? You are number 90 of the interviews.
Pretty great, that. Big 90. Nice round number. That's memorable. Like that.
Absolutely, stuff like that. I mean,
Thanks for having me on, man. Glad to be here.
I appreciate it, mate. How you doing, mate? How's things?
Yeah, real good, thanks. Winning at life.
Yeah. Have you sorted the drum kit out? I know we spoke about that before we came on the air.
You what, sorry?
Have we sorted the drum kit out? We obviously ran about that before we came on the air.
That's at work. It was donated at work, so it's set up in a classroom somewhere, ready for me to go in and have a bash in the morning.
Well, okay. I've got a wrestler. How do you juggle, like, obviously you work as well as wrestling? How do you do that?
I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard, and it feels like it's getting harder the older I get now. So, like, when I started, I was already a full-time teacher, and then I was training once, sometimes twice a week. And then since the pandemic, there's not been a school local to me, so I have to travel upwards of an hour if I want to go train somewhere. And it gets really difficult. And then on top of that, during the pandemic, I started all my music production stuff as well, and learned how to do that. I also do like loads of writing and things, and I'm raising a family, so it's just about juggling your time and picking your battles, when you can, and trying to fit everything in.
Do you ever get time to yourself with everything you do?
Well, I mean, doing the music stuff, especially, I'm up here in my office. I'm in, like my little man cave, as it were, and that kind of is time to myself. That's, I enjoy that kind of solitude of just sort of like getting on and playing my instrument. So it does build itself in a little bit.
Absolutely. So we're talking obviously about your career and stuff like that, everything in between. Before we do all that, let's roll the intro, shall we? I'm just thinking then, how do you manage to be a heel but also be obviously a teacher as well? How does that work? Can you obviously like differentiate both of them?
So it's funny, I was having a conversation about this with somebody the other day. I think that being a teacher is playing a character. When I teach performing arts, so a big part of that is drama anyway. And I feel like, there's a lot of me in that character, but at certain times, especially when you have to be more of a disciplinarian, it stops being me and it starts being a bit of a character. It has to be a role that I have to play to do it. So, I just kind of look at it as another acting gig.
Interesting. I've actually got loads obviously to learn about today. I'm excited for the music thing, obviously what you do, but let's obviously start with wrestling, mate. Do you know what I mean? How does it all begin?
Oh man, how far back do you want me to go?
Let's start obviously as a fan and then obviously transition obviously to a wrestler.
Okay, all right. So as a fan, I have these vague sort of little memories from the 90s of seeing little bits here and there. Like, I remember seeing an episode of the Hulk Hogan Saturday morning cartoon show and being like, what is this? Who are these guys? And someone explaining to me like, oh, they're wrestlers, but not actually seeing wrestling for a long time. And then I remember going to a mate's house and seeing a videotape of, I think it was Hogan versus Bossman in a cage match, and Bossman's choking Hogan with his shirt, and I'm going, can he do that? Is he allowed? And my mate's going, yeah, it's a cage match. Do what you want. I'm like, right. And then the next thing I saw, I went to a cousin's house and he was watching the Three Faces of Foley and they were talking about that cell match. So one of my first like really vivid memories is Mankind getting thrown off the top of that cell straight away. And I'm like, this is insane. And it was still a couple of years after that. It was around 2000 when I really started watching properly. And my first episode of, probably wasn't Raw, it was probably like Livewire or something like that. But it was Chris Jericho's WWE debut, which, I think is quite a memorable sort of first episode to be watching. And since then, like once my parents got Sky and I had access to it, I was just watching it every week. I was completely hooked from there. And, that was an obsession right through the 2000s. I maybe dropped off once or twice. But, you drop off for like 8 months and then the Rumble comes round and you go, well, I'm going to watch the Rumble. And then you're watching the road to WrestleMania and then you're back in again. So, if I did sort of wander away from it, it was never for a long time. Spent a lot of my teenage years as well, like sort of like going on Google and going, well, where do you go train to wrestle? And I live up like near Hull. So you'd look online and you see like, well, Manchester or Birmingham or London, and I have no income. I have no real way of like traveling to any of these places. So I'm looking at it going, I don't have a chance of, ever wrestling. I don't think it's something that's going to happen for me. And then as I got on through my 20s, me and a friend started going to a few more sort of local British wrestling shows. WCPW was on the rise. It felt like British wrestling was really like coming up again. And we were like, this is great. Let's go watch some shows. And we went to NGW in Hull, and then one of their proving ground shows in Beverley. And they had some leaflets on the seats, like saying, "Come and train at our academy. We've moved to a new building. It's going to be great. Come along. Your first session's free." All of that, and we both kind of looked at each other and went, "Should we go?" And we went, "Yeah," and never really looked back from there.
Interesting. So NGW, is that Nathan Cruz and Myers and everybody?
It was, yeah. So my first trainer really was Kaz Crash. He was running the beginners academy class, and then I moved on to the advanced, which was been sort of co-taught by Nathan and Myers, and Liam Slater was in there for a bit as well. So I was in pretty good company early on.
Wow, awesome. And what's some of the things obviously you learned at NGW?
Oh man, so a lot of the basics, like straight off, I was in really good company for just learning things like how to lock up, how to take a head, work sort of some tech stuff, run the ropes, the bumps. That was all there really, really quickly, and I felt like I picked up those basics fairly quickly. Getting to the more advanced stuff and realizing like how fit I needed to be. Like I spent a lot of my 20s as a musician, going out and drinking a lot, not really doing a lot of exercise. So suddenly I felt like there was this whole lifestyle change as well. And, I was trying to think a little bit more about what I was eating, stop drinking anywhere near as much as I used to, and just started trying to exercise more. So that became a big part of it for me. I started going to the gym with Nathan quite a lot as well. There was a local gym in Hull that we both like to go to. So we started going to the gym together quite a lot there. The main thing from Nathan really was psychology. Like the guy has got such an incredible mind for wrestling. He gets it, and not just one product. He gets the different styles as well. Like if you want him to have a British style match, he knows exactly how to play it out. If he needs to have a main event match, he can do that. If you want a more Japanese style or an indie style, he can do that as well. So really good person to pick his brain, and a lot of the time just listen to what he has to say, because he's been there and he's done it all.
Absolutely. So I obviously primarily know obviously your work from Fight Factory. How did you end up obviously at Fight Factory?
So I had a bit of a rough ride up to the pandemic. I broke my arm in a training match, and I felt like I was getting to a place where I was about ready to be on shows, and that set me back 6 months, and then I started getting back in the ring, but I'd lost a lot of confidence. So it was about 6 months ish getting that confidence back, and then just as I got there, COVID, and everything shut down. And after that, NGW, the academy didn't reopen, so I was in a bit of a predicament. I didn't have my local training school anymore, and this is where I had to start going further afield. So Evo opened in Cleethorpes, Grimsby area, so I was going there a lot. Nathan Black and Liam Slater set up PPW, so I started spending a lot of time in Sheffield, and obviously in between both of those, if you go to Lincoln, that's where Fight Factory Wrestling is. So I started going to Fight Factory as well with some of my other cohorts from Hull, and eventually, Becca saw me have a few training matches, and she said, "Yeah, you're good. Like what you do, like your attitude. We'll start using you on shows." They had me as a referee a couple of times before that, and I worked the cameras for them as well on a couple of occasions. So I kind of got in, paid my dues a little bit there, and was lucky enough to be accepted in, welcomed in.
Yeah, and I mean, if we Fight Factory, I mean, there's some great talent there. Obviously, Jason Morgan, KD, Jacka Clubs. I mean, there's some incredible talent. Tell people obviously about the talent there.
Like you've mentioned a lot of good names there. I'm in a group called the New Age, and that was kind of my introduction as well. I'd been a referee up to that point, and KD was setting up this new group, the New Age. He needed members, so it was me, him, Morgan, Flex Buffington was in it at the time, and then Jack Maxwell, who'd debuted earlier that year, and myself were kind of drafted in to sort of round out the rest of the team as well. So it was great to be picked in a position where I could go and be with these other people and be in like some of these top level feuds, and get into matches where I could learn from other people. Did a lot of work with Dutch early on, who again a very different kind of like take on wrestling to Nathan, I think, and being in the ring with him and someone who doesn't necessarily always want to go like the planned route. You know, he wants to get out there and just sort of feel the crowd and feel those things that are happening. Was a really great experience on that as well. So really learned a lot from working with Dutch on the Fight Factory shows and on some camp shows as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my other Hall boys, obviously Yorkshire Tough, Reese and Rogan, HMD, Jack Maxwell as well. Jack's incredible and he's so underrated. And I'm not the only person that says this. Loads of people say this about him, but I could wrestle Jack every week. The last Fight Factory show, it was me and him. And when I found out that was the case, I was like, great, excellent. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to have a good match. He might be my most wrestled opponent at the minute, I think, if I went back and counted through my matches. But he's so easy to work with, so easy to bounce ideas off. He's got a great mind for it. He's great at working around the ring, working the crowd, selling. You know, I think Jack deserves to be in a lot more places than he currently is.
Absolutely. You mentioned obviously the character work there, and that's one thing that stands out with Maxwell for me. I love his character work. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I've seen him, like I said, at Fight Factory. I've seen him at NGW. You're absolutely right. I think he is underrated.
Yeah, 100%. The character work is great, and I think some people see him do it and they think this is a bit of a TV character. And obviously, we're not all on TV, so people wonder how it's actually going to work. But you let him take it out there and let him do it, and he does make it work. And surprisingly, a lot of the crowds get behind him as well. Like, you know, he's currently babyface at Fight Factory Wrestling. Started as a heel in the New Age with us, and the crowd just warm to him. They just like him. So, you know, even though he does play this like kind of dark, menacing character, you know, he manages to make that work as a good guy as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned heel there, and for me, when it comes to your character, I just want to say I think it's a natural heel. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I've definitely looked at ways to make it work as a babyface as well. But I think it was born out of the necessity of how do I wrestle as a heel.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I mean, everyone says that to be this is what some people say. I don't agree with. It's like is to be a good wrestler, you've got to do both. But sometimes I feel like people just work better as one than the other.
Yeah. And a bit of feedback I got from Nathan at one point was he thought my wrestling was better as a babyface, but my character was always better as a heel. So it's always been a little bit confusing for me for which way do I actually go? What do I try and do with it? So I was trying to find that thing that, you know, toes the line. Like the perfect example is obviously Stone Cold Steve Austin, who it didn't really matter whether he was heel or babyface. He was the same character. And, you know, he only had to sort of like tweak things ever so slightly to make people cheer or boo him, depending on what was going on around him at the time. So I had this babyface character where it was a little bit more sort of, I'm working hard. I've got these 3 jobs. I'm a musician, I'm a teacher, I'm a wrestler. And, you know, I work hard for everything that I've got. And, you know, the people get behind me because we like people who work hard and try and achieve the dreams. And one day I was just in the kitchen. I think I was doing some housework, like cooking or meal prep or something. And, you know, my mind was drifting. I was like, I've got things pretty good at the minute, all things considered. We've had this pandemic. It's been pretty awful, but here I am. I've got this lovely house. I've got my, at the time, fiance. We've got our dogs. Doing pretty good. Winning at life. And I just kind of thought, no one's using that. Why is nobody using that? And I kind of realized that was the heel version of my character. I'm winning at life, and I'm going to rub that in people's faces. So just kind of started from an off the cuff thing like that, as a lot of these things do.
Yeah, absolutely, stuff like that. So, with everything you've done in your career so far, what's some of your personal highlights?
I've mentioned his name a lot, but one was definitely last year when I got to have a match with Nathan Cruz. My bucket list is kind of to go through my trainers and have matches with my trainers. So even though Matt Myers is retired, I'm still coming for him. Liam Slater, absolutely. We've had a few sort of matches in trainings where we've just like worked around each other and called some stuff on the fly. And Liam again is just an absolute pleasure to be in the ring with. You always feel safe. You feel like you're having fun. It's great. So there's some people I want to get up there with in the future. I'm probably jumping to a different question there. But yeah, my match with Nathan was great. That kind of came about because I didn't know if I was going to get the opportunity anywhere else. and he said to me like, why do you ask Miss Rebecca if we can do it at Fight Factory? And she squeezed us on the card and let us just go out and do our thing and tell our story. And I'm really grateful for her for doing that as well. A couple of years ago as well, it's all grown back now. I've got plenty of hair here again, but at one point after COVID, I hadn't cut it for a long time, and I decided that the top knot was going to get chopped off for the Little Princess Trust, who, if people don't know, basically they take hair and make wigs for young children who have suffered from cancer and gone through chemotherapy. And I just thought that would be a nice thing to do. So Dutch and I had a title versus hair match for the European Championship at Fight Factory, where he beat me, and then he proceeded to chop my top knot off in front of everybody, which, it got a great reaction. It was a heel getting egg on his face, and everyone at the time loved to see it. So now that this has grown back, maybe one day I'll have to do it again. But that was certainly two big highlights for me.
Yeah, and it's also like say it's also for a good cause and stuff like that. I know obviously Fight Factory do a lot for cancer, like the Body Slam to Cancer event. Obviously, that's a yearly thing as well.
Yeah, Body Slams is a great show. That was my first actual debut show. I kind of missed that off actually when I was talking earlier. The year before I did debut for Fight Factory proper, one of my very, very first matches was in the Body Slams to Cancer Rumble, where they're very good at just sort of picking up extra talent, coming along, helping out for the cause, but also you get a chance to be seen by Fight Factory and they can see a little bit of what you're about there as well. So I've done 3 or 4 Body Slams to Cancer Rumbles now. Not won one yet, but maybe one day.
You never know, right? You never know, mate. Let's be honest, yeah?
Absolutely.
So before obviously you go out to perform and stuff like that, how do you get yourself like into the zone, as I call it?
You know what? Sometimes it's really, really hard because it depends what's happened on the day and whereabouts you are on the card. If you're on earlier in the night, you could be planning your match and there might be loads of storyline stuff that you have to go over and you're grabbing other people, like especially when you're in a stable like the New Age. It's like, do I need this person? Do I need this person? And you end up grabbing them all and working out these little things. And then it's like, do you need me to come and do something in your match? Do I need to come out to ringside with you? Am I doing a run-in? And you go through all that, and then suddenly it's like, oh crap, I'm out in 20 minutes. And you're getting your gear on really quickly, and you're warming up. Ideally, if I have time, I like to get dressed fairly early because then it's one thing out of the way. And then for me, it's having a little bit of a stretch off. I'm a massive advocate of DDPY. I love that stuff. And on the app, he's got what he calls the NXT warm-up, which is like a 15-minute, just get your blood pumping, just get stretched out a bit. If I've got the time, I like to take myself off to a quiet corner, start with that, and then sort of get the resistance bands out and, do a few push-ups and curls and things like that, and just, get the blood pumping, get the body a little bit tensed up, a little bit, ready to go out and work. Right before I go out, I normally sort of pace a bit, and it gets me into character. I start getting a little bit of a swagger. I start having this, like, just sort of playing with my jaw a little bit and getting that, ready to shout winning at life and melt at people. It just sort of helps gradually sort of phase me into it and gets me hyped for going out and doing what's to come next.
Absolutely. And how do you obviously wind down after a match?
Winding down is way harder. Because if you're really pumped up, like if you've had a good time, if you've been out there and you think you've had a good match, you come back and you're buzzing about it, and you don't really want to come down from that, but you have to. So it might be sort of like a little bit of a debrief, like talking to other people who were in the match, getting some feedback from people. I've taken to, if I can, in the venue, like going for a shower pretty quickly, because obviously you're always sweaty and manky, but it helps me to cool down a bit as well. And if I wait till I get home before having a shower and a bit of a clean up, and then it's late at night, loads of people say a shower is supposed to help you get to sleep. It does the opposite for me. It keeps me awake. So I try and have a shower as soon as I can, get cooled down, have something to eat, and love a good bag of cashew nuts after a match. The honey roasted one. Something about them just like gets my energy back up. Either that, or most of the time after a wrestling show, most wrestlers will tell you that it does turn into a bit of a cheat time there, and there's a dirty takeaway or a Macca's or something on the way home usually.
That kind of falls on from obviously Simon Gibb, who obviously is a regular listener to the show. He posted a couple of questions also on Instagram, and one of them was, what's your go-to cheat meal?
Go-to cheat meal? Oh, God. Um, I'm terrible. I'm trying to do better with my diet all the time, but I am terrible. So cheat meals, probably 3 or 4 times a week when it should just be one. Um, Love a pizza. I'm not even fussy. It doesn't have to be a takeaway pizza. I've, a pizza from Tesco is fine by me. I think they do some nice ones. Um, when we wrestle in Gainsborough, there's a takeaway just around the corner called the Gainsborough Grill. Uh, we're big fans of the food there, and they do a pizza burger, which I've not seen anywhere else before. But as I am usually the driver, it means I get pizza plus burger in like this little bun thing, and I can eat that pretty quickly, and then we can get on the road. So that I think is the answer. Gainsborough Grill pizza burger.
I'm kind of curious to see what that actually looks like because I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's the bun, and then it's got the cheese and tomato that you'd have for a pizza, and then there's your topping, so you can have like a spicy one, pepperoni one, chicken one, and then there's a burger in it as well.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to look around that because I don't think I've seen it around even where I'm from as well. So I'm curious.
Yeah, maybe it's a Gainsborough specialty.
Never know, mate. Never know stuff like that. So you kind of touched on it earlier on, but is any more of a serious injury you'd obviously suffered?
The broken arm is the biggest one. I twisted my ankle once, and that didn't go away for quite a long time. And I think that's just because the nature of my job, I'm on my feet a lot all day as well, so I didn't really get a chance to rest it the way I wanted to. But the broken arm was the really big one.
Wow. And did you say it was about 6 months it took to heal?
Yeah, it was weird. I was lucky in a way because I broke the skin. It was a compound fracture, and the bone was sticking out of my arm. And if it hadn't done that, I would have had to wait longer for surgery, and it would have probably taken longer to heal. But because I broke the skin, there was a high risk of infection. So they put me in an ambulance. They took me to the hospital that night, and the next day they operated on it. And the day after that, they sent me home. Um, it was an experience certainly, but it's weird how the injury being worse actually turned out to be quite lucky in that respect. My arm still, when it's cold, goes a bit weird sometimes. But I have found like as the years have gone by, it's got stronger and stronger again to the point where I can't forget about it most of the time now.
Reese says, what part of the arm?
Um, this part, these two bones in the forearm. I don't know if the camera will show it, but there's a scar sort of along here, and then there's one along there as well. So they had to go into both sides, like one side to fix each bone. I think you can see that one a little bit better than the other side, actually. But yeah,
you can see
there's always a bit of a reminder there.
Wow. I bet that's horrible to look at that, knowing obviously that you broke the arm.
Oh man, when I did it, I sat up and I looked at it. My arm was all crooked, and three thoughts went through my head. And weirdly, they went in this order. Number one, my missus is going to kill me because we won't be able to go on holiday now. We were supposed to be flying about 2 weeks later. What was the second one? The third one was, I'm probably not going to wrestle again. I can't remember. I think the second one was, God, I'm going to have to call work and explain this to them. And then the third one was, I'm probably never going to wrestle again. So, all those thoughts just kind of like came through my head really, really quickly. We went on holiday somehow. I just got cleared in time to fly. I explained it to work and they were pretty cool about it. It was nearly the summer holidays anyway, so I think I only had 2 weeks off work, and I'm still wrestling. So it all worked out.
Yeah, weird timing. Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dear. So I kind of threw this question to you, obviously when we were messaging and stuff like that, but I'm going to put you on the spot now. For fans who's obviously not familiar with yourself, why should fans go check you out? This is the way I obviously let wrestlers promote themselves.
I think people enjoy watching me getting beaten up because I am a smug prick. I'm winning at life, and if you're not on my side, you're a melt. And I'm so grateful for the way that the melt stuff has taken off because, again, it was one of those kind of like wrestling accidents. I was looking for a word that I could call people, so I wasn't like swearing on a family-friendly show. Like what's a more PC word that I can use to shout and insult the crowd? Muppet seemed really popular, so I was trying to stay away from Muppet because there was a few people saying that, and I just sort of landed on melt in my head. And I didn't really think anything of it. I said it on a few shows, and then I turned up to a Fight Factory show, and I'm walking out, and I get my first ever fan sign, which is this little lass is holding a hand drawn ice lolly that's melting, and it says "melt" on it. I was like, that's incredible. That's so cool. I can't believe she's done that. And then we got to mine and Dutch's feud that culminated in me cutting my top knot off. And he brought this little girl in the ring at the beginning of the match, and he was calling me a melt. And I'm going, no, I'm not a melt. You're a melt. No, you're a melt. You're a melt. Back and forth. And he brings this girl in and gets her to start calling me a melt, and all the crowd start chanting it. And I was like, I can't believe this. This is taken off as a thing now. And I started workshopping it on camp shows and managed to make it into a bit of a thing on there as well. So that was that was a bit of a happy accident in terms of the characters, but it's one of those things that it gets the fans involved. They love calling me a melt. They love having an argument with me about whether I'm a melt or they're a melt. And you know, the guys at Fight Factory, the fans there are brilliant. They get up, they get in my face, they really give it to me, and you know, I really appreciate that. And when I do get the egg on my face, you know, the reaction I get, I'm putting over the other guys. That's the heel's job essentially, isn't it? It's to make the babyface look better. So if they hate me and want to see me get beaten up, then I feel like I'm doing my job properly.
Absolutely. For people listening, if you've not been to a Fight Factory show, go to one. I mean, I've been to one as well, and I came away smiling so much because we're just so entertaining, you know, the character work and stuff like that. And you were obviously a prime example.
Yeah, there's such a good mix at Fight Factory because there's some real like comical characters. When you look at like your cousin Lenny's, for example, Microphone, you know, those guys do some really, really funny stuff. But then when you get to sort of Reese and Rogan, HMD, you've got much more serious characters. And it's that, I think it's that blend. You know, wrestling should be a variety show. Not every single match should be the same. There's got to be something there for everybody. And I think Fight Factory are really good at establishing that balance.
I think you've said that pretty best, and I couldn't have worded it any better. Do you know what I mean? Something different, you know, for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, sometimes you do see a show, or you know, you're watching a promotion on TV, and it does feel like every single match is just like 20-minute bangers, and that's great. But when you've seen one 20-minute banger, you want to see something else. You don't want to see another one and another one and another one. You need something to mix it up to keep it interesting. So, you know, I think that's something that a lot of promotions recognise in this country, and they try and do to offer something different to the fans.
Absolutely. So I want to pick your brain with this because I'm really excited to learn this. Entrance music producer. Please tell me all about it because I really want to learn.
All right. So, again, this was kind of a child of the pandemic. I can't go out. I can't wrestle. I've been a musician playing in bands for most of my life. I can't play in a band right now. What can I do? I can record some music. And my skills in recording music at the time were not very good. I didn't know very much. I had a bit of the gear and no idea. And I kind of started faffing around with some stuff. I sort of made some little demos just on my own, watching loads of YouTube videos and stuff like that as well, and sort of like learning how to do it. And a couple of my mates in wrestling were going, why don't you make some entrance themes? Yeah, I could do. I don't know. I wouldn't really know where to start. And shout out to Ace Matthews for this one, my first ever customer. He said, well, why didn't you do one for me? Why didn't you give it a go? I said, yeah, okay, well, what do you want? And he goes, well, I want like an 80s workout video. And he sent me this video. I was like, okay, this, like, you know, someone who chiefly has played a lot of rock and metal, this might be a bit of a challenge. I don't really know where to start. So I sat down and I went through a few things, and I kind of came up with these little sort of Van Halen-esque riffs with the more like jump style synthesizer. And I played back the 80s workout video again. I was like, actually, I'm not far off here. This is pretty good. And I sent it to him and he loved it. He thought it was brilliant. And that was a real, you know, for the first one, it was a real kind of confidence boost for me to say, actually, maybe I can do this. So I started with a lot of people that were closer to me, just doing them sort of on the cheap and saying, like, what do you make to this? So I did one for Dara Diablo. I've done a couple for Jack Maxwell now. I did Reese and Rogan's old theme, HMD's theme. Nathan, I did his One More Shot theme and his Second to None theme. Second to None has become sort of my track that I'm synonymous with. I think it's the one that's got over 2,000 plays on Spotify, which I think in the grand scheme of things isn't that much, but for for someone who doesn't really promote himself, he just lets the music go out there and do its thing on other people's shows. I'm really, really proud of that one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but if you actually just correct me if I'm wrong, you actually did the actual theme song for Nathan Cruz, Second to None.
Yes, that was me.
What a song, by the way. Wow.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. So I did all right with that one. I wrote all the music to it. I wrote the lyrics as well. It's actually Scotty Rourke who's singing on that one.
Now I can see that now. I never thought about that. That's weird. That's
Yeah, it's funny. No one does. You know, there's a few times he's been standing in the ring there, like ready to fight Nathan, and Nathan's coming out, and you know, you don't put the two together. But yeah, he did the vocals on that one as well. So yeah, really chuffed with that one. It was really fun when it came to doing my own, because I've kind of realised that I work better as a musician when I am working for other people. Like if someone gives me a criteria and they say, here's a couple of links to songs I'd like a song doing in this style for my entrance music, then, you know, I can go away and I can do it. And because there's kind of like a pressure, not a deadline as such, but there is a pressure. Someone has paid me money to do this. I can make it happen. Whereas if I'm writing music just for me, like if I wanted to put together like a little EP and write a few songs, I'm terrible. Can't do it. I can't stay focused long enough. I can't do anything that I like. It just doesn't work. But when it came to doing my theme song, I managed to pull that one off. I had the riff in my head. I kind of knew what I wanted it to be. And I'm a terrible singer as well, which is why I get people like Scotty Rourke to sing on tracks for me and as many other people as I can, because I'm not confident in my own voice. But I like the fact that on that, because of my character, winning at life, I would have the brashness, I would have the confidence to sing it myself, and you know, have my voice on there in that kind of egotistical way, even if it does sound a bit crap. That's kind of the point. So yeah, it's a big process. It does take time, especially now that I am a dad as well. I find I've got less and less time to do these, but it is kind of my sanctuary to go away and work on them. And there's a real kind of like process and psychology, I think, as well, to writing an entrance theme, because it's not like writing a song, it's an entrance theme. So it can't just be, here's a song about a subject. It's got to reflect somebody's character. It's got to fit with what they're actually going to do for their entrance as well. And you've got to think about things like, well, you can't have a massive intro because most people get about 90 seconds. That's like the time that they're expected to get to the ring to it. So I always kind of start with like a 90-second demo and send this first 90 seconds to people and go, this is what I'm thinking. I'll fill it out to, you know, a 3-4 minute track, but your first 90 seconds, it's going to be this, and this is what you come to the ring to. And if they're happy with that, then I feel that's the place to go from. But again, you've got to create some variety in there. You don't want everything to be on the same level. You need some drops. You need things to build up and feel climactic. Think about what's happening when they step through the curtain. What happens when they get up on the apron? What happens when they get in the ring? You know, all those kind of things sort of come together into it to help structure what's going on. And it most of the time it ends up being very, very different for different people, because again, of like the different genres, the different styles, the things that they want to hear in their music. I had a really good bit of advice on Eric Bischoff's podcast where he was chatting a little bit about entrance music, and he talked about the walking pace and making sure that your tempo is at a pace where you can see your character walk into the ring. So again, I spend a bit of time to begin with as well, like thinking about the tempo. Like, is this a character that shuffles quite slowly to the ring, or is it someone who really marches down? Is it someone that kind of like struts a little bit in between, like myself, who's a little bit cocky? You know, there's all the factors, and music is such a brilliant thing for having all the different elements to it that allow you to think of those things and try different things when you're putting it together. I love doing it. I really love doing it.
How long is the process normally for a song then? Is it like months or weeks or?
It depends. The quickest I ever churned one out, and I was really proud of myself. I started it Friday night and I sent it back to the guy on Sunday. It was probably about 8 hours in total. I'm not usually that lucky. So I'm working on JOC's new theme at the minute, actually, and he's given me some ideas, and there's some quite complex things in there. So I really want to rise to the challenge with it. It's challenging my musicianship quite a bit, you know, sort of forcing me to play things that I wouldn't normally play. It's a pretty standard rock song, but it's quite a technical rock song in terms of those things as well. So I'm taking my time with it, and I'm just trying to make sure that everything is as it should be and right with it. So this one's taken a little bit longer. If I'm collaborating with someone, like I need another musician, that can slow you down as well. So I'm waiting to get vocals back off some people for some other tracks as well. It really is a how long is a piece of string kind of deal. They can take months, they can take a couple of weeks. It completely depends on how quickly that vision comes together, because sometimes you could just not be inspired, and it can really, you end up dragging your feet on it, or something's not working, you can't get it quite right, you get yourself a little bit too close to the project, and then you can't see the wood for the trees, as it were. So sometimes you have to take a step back and have a bit of a think, maybe work on somebody else's for a bit, and then you come back and eventually something normally shows you the way.
Wow, that's really, really fascinating. Do you know what I mean? I'm still blown away that you did Second to None, which is, like I said, it's one of the top themes around the UK.
I'm pleased to hear that, man. I am. I'm so chuffed and proud with it. And the process of writing that was quite difficult as well, because at the time, Second to None was a stable, and it wasn't just Nathan who was sort of talking to me about it. Like Myers was involved in that as well, and they were kind of thinking about what they wanted it to be. And the original song was actually, it was very similar to Turn the Page, which Nathan used to use in Progress. And I was kind of trying to do a callback to that. And the feedback that he gave me was, no, it's too similar to Turn the Page. I want something completely different. And the one bit that stuck was the main riff, which was actually a lot slower and played in kind of like a different style. And I put a little bit more gain on it. I think I changed the key, made it lower, and I played it again. And I sort of went, actually, this might work a little bit better. So sometimes it's a case of style as well, and just trying different things until you hit the nail on the head. It's very much a collaborative process. I can go backwards and forwards with someone, sending them demo after demo after demo, and they can keep telling me, like, I don't think this is right, this isn't what I'm looking for. But if we've entered into this collaborative process, I'm quite a persistent person, so I'm happy to just sort of keep going until it does click as what it should be.
Have you ever had like an awkward one? You don't have to say names, where they're just like, that doesn't work, and it's been like a stressful one. You don't have to go into names.
No, I wouldn't name anyone anyway. Yeah, a couple of times. There's been a couple where I've been a little bit disappointed, and I feel like I've failed it a little bit. One person said, "No, thanks. I don't think this is working. I'm actually working with someone else at the same time." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, cheers. Off you go then." Sometimes things like that happen, but I kind of have to remember, as much as I do this like out of passion, I am running it as a business. I'm charging people money for it. So if that's the way things go, that's the way things go. You've just got to learn to sort of not take it personally. Like it's music. It's a very subjective thing. Not everybody's style is necessarily going to gel and fit with yours. That chemistry might not be there. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Wow. Moving back to wrestling a little bit and stuff like that. Being obviously a wrestler and obviously juggling family life, obviously your music producing things and stuff like that. Do you ever get the chance to watch wrestling from like a fan's point of view?
Not as much as I would like to. Quite often, Raw goes on and it's in the background, and I'd like to be watching a lot more than I really am. There was a point in my life where I was watching so much in a week. Like I would watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, a pay-per-view, all the AEW stuff. I'd be dipping in and out of New Japan. I'd be watching British promotions. And I look back at that now and I think, how the hell was I doing that? Like, where was all that time? Because it's definitely not there anymore. And I think it did get to a point where I just constantly had wrestling on in the background. And I kind of realized, how much am I actually watching and how much am I taking in? So now I am pretty much just back to sort of watching WWE again, and I dip into other things occasionally. Like if something comes up like a big New Japan pay-per-view, I quite enjoy Josh Barnett's Bloodsport events. I try and seek those out and watch those as well. But I also do the classics. Like now the Raw's on Netflix and they've done the Raw Vault and all that. I'm back in 1998 and enjoying peak Stone Cold at the minute as well, and sort of watching a lot of that back. And it's interesting to see, because those Raws, there can be some absolutely shocking matches on, but storyline wise, there's some of the greatest stuff that's ever happened in wrestling right next to it. So it's kind of, it's not just about watching the wrestling. I think it's about seeing the storylines unfold and things like that as well. But I do like to try and set at least 10, 20 minutes aside to just try and watch a match a week and really study it.
Yeah, absolutely. So following on from Simon Gibbs' question earlier, he said the other part of his question was favorite match to wrestling. I don't know if he means like a match type or match people. He just says favorite match type to wrestling.
Okay. I'm a big fan of like old school British style wrestling. I've never had a British rounds match. I've done some in training before, but I love submission and technical wrestling. And it's something that I kind of feel like doesn't always match up with my character, so I don't get much chance to do it. But I'd love to have a submission match or a British rounds match.
Okay, and the other part of his question was, what's your favorite music to listen to?
Ah, man, such a broad question. I go through like phases. So depending on the time of the year as well, like I'm not actually sure what it is at the minute. I feel like I'm in a bit of a limbo, sort of in between styles. But I go through big phases of sort of like old school heavy metal, like Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, that kind of thing. I get really into stoner rock, like Clutch and stuff like that as well. My all-time favorite band is Korn. I have been obsessed with Korn for as long as I can remember now. Seen them live more than any other band. I bought 7-string guitars and 5-string bass guitars based on trying to emulate their sound in some of my stuff. Second to none, by the way, there's definitely a big Korn influence in there in terms of the writing as well. And then weirdly, my second favorite band is The Doors, which I think is a really eclectic, weird mix. But I do go through these phases of like getting into like more old school blues stuff as well. Like I went to the cinema the other week and saw the movie Sinners, which was absolutely fantastic. And for anyone who's seen it, it's got this big kind of old school Delta blues influence in it as well. And coming out of that afterwards, I just wanted to listen to loads of blues music again as well. So I'm up and down. I'm all over the place. Generally, if it's live instruments, rock, metal, if I can hear the blues in it, I'm good with it.
Okay, so a few little more questions, mate, as we begin to wind down and stuff like that. What's the biggest thing you've learnt in wrestling? It could be in the ring, it could be outside the ring.
The biggest thing I have learned, I think it's probably that it's not all about moves. I think you see a lot of wrestlers, especially in a lot of like the modern television today, where it's like spamming moves, like on a video game, like moves, 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 moves. And I've always kind of stuck, especially as a heel. I think there's been some matches where I've not hit a single wrestling move because you don't need to. I try to stick to 3, maybe 4 per match. Like people talk about Hogan and Cena and like the 5 moves of doom. You don't need any more. That's all you need to do. It's more about telling a good story and creating those moments. Overall, I'd say it's probably that.
Okay. So, what's obviously the goal now for you, man? Rest of the year.
The rest of this year, probably, as I mentioned a couple of times, I am a fairly new dad. My daughter's 9.5 months old at the minute, so I feel like wrestling is treading water a little bit. I'm wrestling at Fight Factory. I'm not really wrestling anywhere else. If I'm lucky, I might get out to a couple of other promotions by the end of the year. But right now, I'm just trying to keep in the ring semi-regularly and enjoy myself with it. I think next year, when things are a little bit more settled at home again, I might start trying to push myself out and branch out a little bit more. I would like Benjamin Quill's name to get a little bit further. But at the end of the day, I'm not in wrestling as such to make it to WWE or AEW or anything like that. I'm in wrestling because I've loved it since I was a kid, and I still love it now. And I'm just using it to have a good time and keep myself happy, and hang out with like-minded people who have become some of my best friends in this world. And that's just what I want to keep doing, just having a good time.
This is awesome, Ben. I've had an absolute blast, mate. Do you know what I mean? I hope you've enjoyed yourself today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for having me on.
Not a problem. So, obviously, is there anything you'd like to plug? We'll put the link in the description, obviously, for the next Fight Factory show. Would you want to promote it?
Excellent. Yeah. So we've got my man Jason Morgan front and center on the poster. The Book of Morgan coming up at the Lincoln 1NK Leisure Centre on the 28th of June. You do not want to miss that. I need to clarify the details. I'm not even sure how much of this I'm supposed to say just yet. Anyone who made it to the last Fight Factory show knows that Nathan Black showed up as well, and he threatened to bring some of his PPW cronies down. So I think it's July the 5th. We might be doing some little Fight Factory versus PPW action as well, and that is something that you do not want to miss out on. I'm not quite sure what I think to that at the minute, because I train at Fight Factory and I've been training at PPW since it started. I was there when they were setting that school up. I helped them move into the original building. So I'm not quite sure where my allegiances lie just yet. So we'll have to wait and see how that one pans out.
There you go. What we'll do, like I said, we'll put all the links in the description and stuff like that, so fans can jump from obviously this video. Go check it out. And I said it earlier on, if you can get to a Fight Factory, so because you will enjoy yourself. I've been to one, and like I said, Ben, you obviously work for one. So, do you know what I mean? Just go to one. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Come to Fight Factory, have a blast with the rest of us. There's two venues that we tend to run. There's the ex-church in Gainsborough, which is literally an ex-church. It's an old church that's been repurposed as a venue, and it's beautiful. It's such a lovely venue to be in, and I feel privileged that we get to wrestle in that one. And then again, the Lincoln One NK is where our slightly bigger shows happen as well. So if you can make it to either of those, get in that area, come check it out.
There you go, stuff like that. So I need one final thing from you, man. So everyone I interview gets to do the outro for this show. So you can say anything you want, you can promote anything you want, and I will hit the outro. Take it away.
This is Benjamin Quill, winning a life, telling you, don't be a melt. Listen to Grand Entrance Media music on Spotify, Apple Music, all your good services. Follow at Benjamin Quill 88 on Instagram, at Grand Entrance Media on Instagram, like on Facebook, all that stuff. Don't be a melt.